Welcome back to the tavern, everybody. This is Jack, and I have Jack Jr. with me. We have a little bit of a abbreviated staff today. All our visitors went back home. My brother Mike is back in Pennsylvania visiting his new grandson, and Dennis is in Florida visiting his mother. So it's just me and Jack Jr., and we're going to bring you the best show we can. Last week we went over Iran. We were going to go over the 3 threats to the United States with foreign policy right now, which is going to be Russia, Iran, and China being the biggest one in our opinion. Russia is moving very quickly into second place with their activity that they've been conducting over there. And Iran we went over last week, and they are a substantial threat also. So just for an introduction, I wanted to say we're not going to go over Russia or China this week. We're going to review the State of the Union that we went through in the middle of the week from our president. But before we start, I just wanted to mention one more time, now that he's not here, Dennis, what an honor it is to have him here sitting by my side. He's a true hero, combat veteran, awarded. Other units awarded him for his work. Intelligent man, brilliant to work with, and one of the most humble people I ever met. So again, my hat's off to Dennis and all the work he puts into the United States Constitutional Group and the web page that he does, and all the work he does separately for the podcast, which is Meet at the Press. And we have our drinks ready, and we're going to start this over. And this week, all I wanted to do was just to remind you, everyone, so to speak, to bring you back. We are going to cover a lot of information today about that State of the Union. The podcast is probably going to be a little shorter because I have no back and forth with Dennis. But we can fix the problems of the government right now still through the ballot box. And we have to remember that we need to go with our friends and family and vet these guys and vote them out and get the proper government in. So here we go. I just wanted to start with the State of the Union. I'm going to be flipping through my pages because Dennis isn't here and he puts everything on a computer and we don't have to go through our pages. But the State of the Union started with President Biden walking into the chamber, and I didn't understand why it was so empty. Practically nobody was there, nobody in the balcony, nobody sitting in the chamber itself, very few. And they were all wearing masks. The Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, Vice President Kamala Harris, wearing a mask through the whole entire process, the whole night, the whole speech. And I don't understand, he had said, which was true, when he got to the podium, Madam Vice President. And that was the first time it was ever said in the history of the United States, which is leaps and bounds for this country. It really is. It's truly, we have a woman at the Vice President, and we have a woman Speaker of the House, and this is all good. Kamala Harris, not only being a woman, but a minority, and she's second in command in this great country. Unfortunately, I don't know if she's qualified for the title. And for that matter, I don't know if the president is qualified anymore. He may have been in his very, very long career in D.C. He may have been a reasonable representative to this country, but I don't think so today. And, they didn't have a problem packing that chamber during impeachments at the end of January, beginning of February. Everybody was there, all 100 senators, and but for this, they couldn't. I don't understand the theatrics of it. I don't know why he had to remind us of the horrible year we went through, the prior year we had with this COVID epidemic, and why he had to scare everybody by leaving that chamber empty and everybody wearing masks. Why not celebrate the turning point, the vaccinations, that everybody in our government is vaccinated and safe now? Bring them in and listen to your words. Celebrate this. Give a little kudos to Trump for Operation Warp Speed, that we were able to get this. I don't understand the theatrics, and it's very frustrating to me to watch that with this pandemic. I mean, we initially were trying to get 150 million Americans vaccinated, and we got that. And I don't understand, why they didn't celebrate it, why they went backwards in fear. I mean, that's not the United States. The United States stands against their problems, against their adversaries, which at this time it was a pandemic. We stood against the pandemic, COVID-19. We stood against it. Warp Speed brought 3 different vaccinations. All our representatives and senators in the federal level got vaccinated. They're safe. Our government is safe. Show it off. Why are we kowtowing to this? Why are we running scared to it? Stand up. Show what we did. So, 2 minutes and 16 seconds into the State of the Union, Biden brought up race by calling the last administration an attack on our democracy since the Civil War. First of all, we don't live in a democracy. We live in a republic, and there's the problem right there. And when you, on either side of the aisle, when you insult the other party, you insult their constituents also. We try not to insult. We point things out. And I had said that Vice President Harris may not be qualified for the vice presidency. That's my opinion, and I'm not insulting the constituents. The constituents didn't vote for her. They voted for Joe Biden. And so by insulting this man as an attack on our democracy, the worst since the Civil War, he's also insulting 70 million people that voted for that president. And they need to stop insulting. 3 minutes and 15 seconds, Biden mentioned nothing can keep Americans down. And I hope enough people are doing what Dennis and I are doing, and Jack Jr., and Margaret, and my brother, and myself. We're very average people, so I'm sure there's millions of people reviewing this, hopefully going through the Constitution, because this State of the Union the Constitution really came under attack. And, we have to start figuring out what type of politician we need in office. 4 minutes and 28 seconds, he talked about the vaccination of 100 million people. Now we're up to 220 million. Now this would have been the perfect opportunity to say we were able to get these vaccinations out because of Trump and Warp Speed. And, he had said that only 1% on the day he got elected, the day of his inauguration, only 1% of the seniors were vaccinated, and now 70% are. And he could have mentioned the reason why was because of Warp Speed. Because many of the people in the chamber that should have been in that chamber, they contributed to that also, Democrats and Republicans on both sides. They passed laws that made it okay for these pharmaceutical companies to invent this vaccination. And without that, we would still be struggling. Pray to God, not as much as India is right now, but we still would be in very, very bad shape if it wasn't for Operation Warp Speed, and, there is a very good plan going to get as President Biden says, getting the shots in the arm. And that is on his watch. He is getting shots in the arm. They're slowing down a little bit. Believe me, I know. I work in a hospital setting with security, and I see the numbers coming in. And the first round of vaccinations are slowing down. And I am too far down in the ladder, on the rungs of the ladder, to know why it is slowing down. Are they slowing down because people are seeing, what's the use of getting vaccinated if I still can't go into a store, not being wearing a mask? You can't still have a full chamber at the State of the Union with everybody vaccinated. Yet 2 months ago, you were able to have everybody in there jammed in there for hours and hours and days. Maybe some people are starting to think, well, I don't know, is the vaccination really working? You had number 2 and number 3 in power wearing a mask the entire State of the Union. For the entire State of the Union, you're vaccinated and you stayed masked, and that's unfortunate to me. 8 minutes. Now we're going to change gears from going from the vaccination to what scares me a lot, and that is the social programs that are going on. Now, for 25 years, in the Clinton administration, between Clinton and Newt Gingrich, who was the Speaker of the House at the time, said you can have social programs and you can get money out to people that need it, but they have to show proof of work. And, Clinton abided by that. George W. Bush stayed with that. President Obama stayed with that, and Trump stayed with that. President Biden has gotten rid of that. And he was talking about the $1,400 check. So we got 2 checks for $600 and 1 for $1,400. And there was a Greek philosopher. I heard this on a news agency, and I tried to look it up, and Chrome and Amazon and all of these search engines are all very liberal, and I couldn't get the Greek philosopher's name, but a Greek philosopher said, if you keep paying people to be poor, one day you'll have a community filled with poor people. And that's true. You cannot keep giving people money for nothing. Later on he talked about, I'll get to that, giving money back to families with children. And you cannot give free money away. You have to show proof of working. Times are hard right now. We understand that. A lot of small businesses are not there anymore due to the lockdowns that were there nationwide. So there is unemployment. But there's a lot of employment opportunity. But nobody is willing to get off of the unemployment, the free money. They're getting their regular state unemployment, and they're getting the federal money on top of it. So they're making more money staying home than if they go back to work. I was watching on the news today, there's a gentleman in New Jersey, he owns a restaurant. He cannot hire anybody. So he had all of his contacts taking pictures of signs in business windows looking for help wanted. And as of today, the count is up to 1,100 pages of these signs looking for help, but nobody is willing to leave their house. That's what free money does. Excuse me. Sorry for that. Try and keep my coronavirus to myself. So if you continue to give free money out, there's no incentive to go back to work. And, it's hard for a working family, a young guy, a young woman that are married and have small kids living at home. They're making it paycheck to paycheck because they're not far into their career yet. They're at the base pay of it, and somebody's willing to give them free money. They don't care where it comes from. It's making them get by. And that person is exactly the person you want to help out, especially after a pandemic like this. You want to give them a lift up, you want to give them a hand up, not a hand out. And the price tag on that could be much, much less than we're giving out right now if we're showing proof of work. Then you have the other class of people that maybe they're retired already, Social Security, they're living fine, they're getting their checks, they're established. My father's one of them. He keeps saying, I keep getting these checks, I'm making it fine. Where is this money coming from? It goes back to what Tucker Carlson said. Why is the government collecting any taxes on us if they're just going to keep printing money for all these social programs? They're not collecting enough taxes to pay any of this debt off. If he gets these bills passed, he's adding $8 trillion to the deficit in 3 months. That's astronomical. Those are numbers that we can't comprehend. We're regular people. We go into tens of thousands of the year, maybe six figures in some states. But most of us are not making that kind of money. He returns back, and I'll return back to that about more social work, more social programs of giving free money out. 14 minutes and 16 seconds into the State of the Union. Incredibly, he gives Vice President Harris the job in conducting the infrastructure plan. And as far as I know, I don't think she's even started the other job he gave her in the border. I don't think she's done one thing for that. She bragged about making one phone call to South America or Central America, one of their country, one of their leaders down there. Now, when the previous administration left office, he had those countries on board. If you came in, if you were claiming amnesty, you had to stay in the first safe country that you reached, which would be Mexico. Mexico was keeping many of these migrants, and many of them weren't leaving their country yet because they were going to have to go through the hearing the right way. We had said it takes 5 years for an immigrant to become a U.S. citizen, and there's certain time frames they have to be in this country. And what Biden is doing, we have no record on how long these people, they could be in this country for 6 months, hire a lawyer, say I've been here for 3 years, and start the process. So, again, Vice President Harris now has control of trillions of dollars that's supposed to go to the working people in getting our infrastructure fixed. And so far, we had done the math on the programs that he wanted to do for infrastructure, and it came out to $500 billion. So let's round up, because everything, strikes, this, that, whatever, the cost of materials. Let's go say it's going to go $200 billion over budget. That plan still hasn't reached $1 trillion yet, and they have trillions of dollars out going to, we don't know. And that's why it is important that we need them to explain to us. They have to tell the constituents, the American people, where our money goes. This is our money. And the money they're printing off, we, the constituents, again, are responsible for. So they're collecting taxes on us that we're responsible to, that's a revenue for the government. So the American people are responsible to formulate that money. We got to go to work. We have to go to work and pay taxes. And then they're printing money. So after we're done paying our taxes, we have to work harder still to make up that printed money that came from thin air. It's make-believe money because it hasn't been paid for yet. We have to pay that money. And how are you going to pay it when you have social programs that are keeping people at home? So there's a lot of problems with that. He was talking 17 minutes and 20 seconds into the State of the Union, he had mentioned his big program is Made in America. So everything that the government is supposed to buy now, cars, their fleet, steel for their programs, doing the bridges, concrete, everything is supposed to paint, everything is supposed to be made in America. Now, President Trump already said that. President Trump already implemented that. But here's something that President Biden is not mentioning that Trump did. Who's going to make it? Not one time while he was talking about Made in America, that the government's only allowed to buy products made in America, did he mention the American labor. So, okay, that's great. You're going to have stuff made in America, but who's going to make it? He doesn't have a plan on putting these people to work. That's very scary. Is that why the border's open? Are they the ones that are going to be doing it? And 46 seconds after he had mentioned that, whoops, a little exception came out. He told his staff that there has to be existential circumstances for them to get products not made in the United States. He didn't say it so boldly like that, but that's what he said. If you go on YouTube, go back to 18 minutes and 46 seconds, around there, and you'll hear his exception. He made it flat out. You got to buy it in America. And I told my staff, under very, very excruciating circumstances, can we go out. So there's your first loophole. So there goes everything, because that doesn't happen. And at the beginning of this, he was talking about it being a one-time one-time in a generation spending bill. He had mentioned that a couple times through this State of the Union. A one-time in a generation spending to get our infrastructure going. And I want to ask you, how many people in Congress, Senate, and the representatives ever did one spending bill? If he passes this one-in-a-generation spending bill, guess what's coming next? The second generation spending bill. And the third and the fourth. Their spending never goes away because they're never held responsible for it. They get to spend and spend and spend, and there's no accountability to it. And we have to fund that make-believe money. Again, like I said before, eventually we have to pay that money. We're paying our taxes for current, and they're printing money for future, and we can't catch up to their spending. So the American people right now, with these social programs and this once-in-a-generation, spending bill, we have to catch up to all of that money. How are we going to do that? You have social programs keeping people home. You have a man in New Jersey that has a book, 1,100 pages of help wanted signs, and people are staying home. So please explain to me how Social Security is going to be funded for us. How this money for these spending bills, these once in a generation. I mean, how many generations are we going to go into that are going to have to pay this once in a generation spending bill? I mean, that's a lot. 22 minutes and 21 seconds. He talked about research and development. How the United States is not spending enough money in R&D. And China is killing us in R&D. I don't know how much more money China's spending on research and development than we are. Because everything I can find and look up on what China's bringing to the table as far as new innovation in the world. You know, when he was talking about research and development, he was talking about how the United States invented the internet and global positioning that we can use now on a golf course to find addresses, and nobody uses a map anymore. All these innovations that this government produced through defense funds first and then got to go out to the public. He didn't mention how much China has developed. And I can't find anything that's new in the market that came from China through their research and development. And I believe we can't find any of that because they haven't done any. Because all they do is steal our ingenuity. They steal our ingenuity and they make companies that invest in China share their plans so they have them. Now, in the government of China, the research and development doesn't go to the Chinese people. It goes to the Chinese government. It's the Communist Party of China. And that's who keeps that information. They don't even have internet in their living room. So these products, these advancements in life that we enjoy so much, China's taken, using it in their defense programs, and the people aren't getting it. The Communist Party is getting it. President Xi is getting it. So I think he's wrong on that. I don't think he has that. He also was talking how he 26 minutes and 3 seconds into the State of the Union, he was bragging how much he talks to China. He says before he got elected, he had spent time as a vice president, and he spent 24 hours speaking with the president of China, and 2 hours after his election. I don't know what they were talking about. Again, we have a slant in our government right now because his son was able to get $1.5 billion of money from China to invest in a hedge fund company that he has no experience in. So what was that 2 hour talk about? Hey, Joe, don't forget the $1.5 billion I gave you, kid. Time to pay up. We're here. You know, I think it might have been. So that's why there has to be accountability. And that's why there has to be a true investigation into what his son done with Croatia, Russia, China, the biggest one. You know, these countries don't pay out money like that because they're nice. They pay out money like that because they want a return. 26 minutes and 44 seconds, once again, he talks about once-in-a-generation investment. And this once-in-a-generation investment is going to be going through many, many generations so we can catch up to that money that has been spent and has not come into the Treasury Department. Again, you know, he kept on going over these topics, and the mainstream media is not covering why this is a problem. Once-in-a-generation spending never stops at once. You have to understand, once your government starts giving you money for your child to go to school, they get to tell your child what to learn. Once they start paying your rent, they get to tell you where you're going to live. Once they start paying for your health insurance, they get to tell you how long you get to live. This is serious stuff, folks. You know, when they send your kids to school and they're going to pay your rent and they're going to pay your health care, you're in a lot of trouble. Because now, when you sit down to dinner and you say your daily prayer, it's going to be, they feel you should be praying to the government. Our Father who art in D.C. He also talked about the 12-week family leave, like Europe does. The number one country in the world, he says, doesn't give people enough time off to take care of their family. Here's the difference between Europe and other countries in the United States. We're number one. We make the most money. We carry the world. Every problem that another country, especially in Europe, they have, we have. In the Middle East, all of their problems, they're our problems. In Asia, our problems. That's why we can't afford to take 12 weeks off. That's 3 months. You can't take 3 months off. Europe has their season. They take off. They're off for 3 months. And the government has to pay for everything. That's why their taxes are 51%. That's why when they're wealthy, rich people get sick, they come to the United States. Because if they stayed in the health care that their country developed and gave them, if they don't think it's worth the money to make you well, you don't get well. You die. If they need plumbers, but your child is smart as any doctor out there, that child's going to become a plumber because they paid for the school. Biden's talking about K through 12 is not enough school. They need 4 more years. And the government's going to be responsible for all of that school. How is he going to do that when 45% of the country is not back to regular school? And they don't have graduation ceremonies. And they don't have proms. They don't have school, period. How are you going to send them to college now? What kind of education are they going to get there? If you're a plumber and you go to school, trade school, to become a plumber, you need hands-on. You got to be there. But since the United States doesn't stand up to their problems anymore, and we cower, even after the problem is almost solved, you're not going to have very good plumbers. You're not going to have very good students. You're not going to have very good tradesmen. You're not going to have very good professions. And this is a big problem. When they're willing to give you $3,600 a kid, yeah, that family's going to take that money. Again, like we said before, they're a young family. They're starting out in their trade. They're at the base pay of their trade. They're having kids. They're hustling. And they need that money. So they're going to take it. They don't care where it comes from. And by the time they catch up and they realize, well, they don't have to worry about paying, they're making a decent salary, guess what? They're still going to have to pay because now they have to pay for the next ones. Your kids are in their teens now. Your kids are in their 20s now. They're leaving home. They're building their own world. You should be on Easy Street, but you're not on Easy Street anymore. You have to continue to work to pay for the next ones that are coming through. You know, what we did, what my dad did, what I did, what my siblings did, most of my family, extended family, what we did when we had young kids, we worked harder because we knew what we can afford and what we can't afford. And if we had 2 kids, I ended up having 4 kids. 4 kids was not in the budget of the job I took as a New York City police officer. So I got a promotion. And then I started my own business. And then I worked side jobs on top of that. And I went to school so I could get promoted while I had 4 children. It was a lot of hard work. But what I have today is mine. And I did it. And now I can relax. Now this guy's going to tell me I have to stop paying $3,600 a kid so that all the hard work that I was privileged to do because of white privilege, I now have to do for the next generation. So now I have to go back to work. And you got a lot of people out there right now that haven't started working, and they're still getting this money. We need to wake up, folks. This is socialism. And the scariest thing he said was in the Constitution, Now, he's allowed to say this because a lot of people in the United States don't know what the Constitution says. And if it's confusing to them, they don't try and figure it out. He said the Constitution begins with "we the people." And he looked in that room with a straight face and a serious look of a heart attack, and said, "That is us. We the people, the government. We are the people in government. We are the ones that have to rule and take care of this problem." That is very worrisome, because he's able to say something like that because there's a majority of this country that doesn't understand what the Constitution says. And you need to start reading the Constitution. You need to start reading the Federalist Papers on top of that, because that's the important part. You have to read that book that's on our webpage, The Founder's Key. That teaches you how to decipher what's in the Constitution. And it says, just like we said in our first podcast number 1 and podcast number 2, we went over the Declaration of Independence. And the Declaration of Independence was a declaration on what type of government should rule the United States after the Revolutionary War. And in the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence, it says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, government are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent," there's the big word, the consent of the governed. That's who we are. So the Declaration of Independence said, number 1, your Creator, whoever you believe your Creator is. Number 2, your inalienable rights. And number 3, in a far third place, is government. And the government is there only through the consent of the governed. We are consenting for these people to govern for us. And that is why they need to come back to us and let us know what they're going to vote for. The other day, Senator Mitt Romney, went to a GOP meeting with 4,000 people in Utah. And he got booed. And he had said, "I know some of the things I did was unpopular, but I felt I had a vote in these certain ways." Again, every podcast that me and Dennis has done from the beginning till now has stated, you get a politician on the federal level, in the local level, in your neighborhood. I don't care if he's dog watcher, and he says he did something because he felt this way, get rid of them. Because they're not supposed to put their wants and needs into the government. They're representing you. They're supposed to put what you need, what you want. This is the work we have ahead of us. We need to start vetting the politicians that are in there, review them, see what kind of school they went to, see what kind of grades they got, see what kind of jobs they held. President Biden does nothing but talk about the sayings of his father for good work ethic. That man never held a real job in his life. He worked for a company that supported big business. Then he became a defense attorney. And then immediately after that was voted into Senate. This man never practiced anything his father preached to him. That man has never produced $1 out there. That man has never walked a mile in your shoes, not one time. He's had hardships in life, I know. But he never had to worry about where the next plate of food was going to come. He never had to knuckle down like his father did after his father lost a job up in Massachusetts and come back to the coal town in Pennsylvania and start all over again. He never once did that. And that's all he talks about. For you, for me, what you're supposed to do. This is not the way the government's supposed to be run, folks. You need to get these people out. And I tell you, it's a scary thing, because I'm going to go into my conclusion now. And we can go over more of this with Dennis later on with the State of the Union. But you got to realize at home, just like the Declaration said, and just like the Constitution says, the government is there for one reason and one reason only, for you, to protect you and make sure your unalienable rights are protected and there for you every day of your life. So if you have a local or federal government that doesn't have the nerve or the guts to protect you from whatever it is, rioters, the invasion at the border, some of these states, even the politicians themselves, are dangerous for you, like Cuomo, Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi's homeless, and Maxine Waters is incredible. The state's falling apart. They lost a congressional seat because people are leaving that state so fast because it's unsafe. Well, maybe some of these states are going to have to start getting themselves a militia together. If these government agencies can't get your National Guard to protect you from invasion from the border or protect you from rioters through your neighborhood, maybe it's time for the militia to do it. We still feel there's time to save this country through the ballot box. But in order to do that, you have to start doing what me and Dennis are doing. You have to start getting these things together, because we can get these people out and we can save our government through the ballot box still. If you threw a militia together or you demanded your governor to activate the National Guard and protect your borders and protect your neighborhood from rioters, get him to do it, whatever it takes. But if you start your own groups, or you join this one and you get your clubs, you meet with your neighbors, make sure you meet with the teachers that are teaching your children and let them know what your kids want to learn, what you want your kids to learn. You know, about the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Together you can vet these office holders that are there already, and the ones that are planning on it, review them. Do these activities with your friends and your family. Come to the United States Constitutional Group at our website, USCG National 2021 at GoDaddySites.com. Go separately to our podcast, Meet at the Tavern. Review these things that we're saying with your neighbors and your friends. Because if you start vetting these politicians with your kid next to you, it means a lot more. It's very important. If your kids are grown and they're building their world, and they're trying to raise a family on a small salary because they just got into their industry, bring your grandkids with you. Because when you're vetting these people and you're talking to these people at these events, these candidates and these representatives and senators that are already there, the questions mean a lot more when you got your hand on the shoulder of one of your family members, your children, your grandchildren. These are the things we got to do, folks. He also ended the State of the Union without saying God bless anything. He said, thank you for your patience. I don't know. I'm very worried. That State of the Union shook me to my core when he misquoted the Constitution, and me and Dennis are working, and my sister Margaret are working and Jack Jr. to get people to start opening that book called The Constitution. Learn how to read that book by using the key, the Founder's Key, and the Federalist Papers. So, next week, we'll meet you at the tavern.